Hi everyone, Michael here from Avesi. In today's video, we're going to be going over sheet mulching or the lasagna method. So let's get into the video. First things first, what is sheet mulching? It's originally a permaculture technique that has recently been gaining popularity in the mainstream. And it's basically using cardboard, newspaper, maybe even an old carpet, lay it on the ground with the aim of composting the grass or some sort of ground cover in place by mimicking natural soil building processes. Now, what this does is it allows you to eliminate digging or excavation when you want to redo or re-landscape a surface, or maybe even you're trying to build a new garden bed. Now, what the technique really does is it eliminates a lot of expensive and resource intensive machinery and manpower to actually remove the old material. So you're leaving it in place. Now, one thing that I go over in my book, The Modern Rain Garden, when we're talking about sheet mulching for a rainscaping context, we have to remember that as you add layers on top of the original ground, you're going to be raising the grade slightly. Where if you were to just excavate the ground, you would be dropping the grade slightly. So this is something that has to be taken into consideration when you're making the decision, are you going to use the sheet mulch technique, or are you going to simply excavate or dig out the original material? The other important thing to consider when sheet mulching is the concept of time. Obviously, we're relying on time as one of the main factors in composting the earth and creating a surface that we can then plant in. So it's going to take time for the earth to decompose, the grass, the ground cover, whatever it might be, to decompose and actually become a usable surface. Typically, the way that I have done it in the past, if I sheet mulch something either in the immediate spring, then by fall, it'll be ready to plant. Or if you do it in the fall, then likely by spring, it will be ready to plant. Either way, it needs a full season, whether that's winter or summer, to compost the material to make it better for planting in. Okay, so now that we know what sheet mulching actually is, the next question is, how do we do it? Typically, I do it in a three-step process. Number one, prepare the ground. Number two, lay the cardboard. And number three, put the layers on top of the cardboard. Diving into step one, prepare the ground. This is actually the area that Joey and I sheet mulched this year at my place. You can see near the back of the image, the cardboard actually starting to go down near the back fence there. What we did first was we cut the grass, and what we also did is we went through and we looked for any aggressive weeds that we knew that we really didn't want, things like thistles or any invasive species, maybe any vines that we know we didn't want. Rather than risking them coming up through the cardboard, we took a shovel and took out some of the larger weeds that we really wanted to give extra attention to. And on top of that, around the perimeter, you can see on one side it's the foundation wall of the house, and on the other side it's the neighbor's fence. So along the fence line and along the house, we'll take up about 8 inches of whatever the ground would be. In this case, it's grass, because it's really hard to butt the cardboard up against the house and against a fence that's so irregular like this. So that just eliminates or reduces the chances of grass or other plants growing up through that. You can also see in the foreground there's a line between the existing lawn and the grass that we're taking up. Now we edged this out and we took up the grass about, again, 8 to 12 inches into that area, just so that we're trying to move the edge to where we want it and not have grass coming up through the end of the cardboard. Moving on to step number two, actually laying the cardboard itself. Now, when it comes to choosing what type of cardboard, there's a few important considerations to look for. I always try to find a few number of really large pieces of cardboard rather than a lot of really small pieces of cardboard. because what you want to do is try to reduce the amount of joints or seams in the cardboard itself. So things like furniture, major appliances, these are ideal places to get cardboard. So what I've actually done before is gone to a big box store like a Home Depot and said, do you have any cardboard that I could take? Because they're always getting rid of boxes for the stuff that they're using in their showroom. So that's a really good source of cardboard. The other thing that you want to make sure you do is lay it downstream to upstream the way that you would lay roofing tiles. Always be aware of which way the earth is naturally falling and start at the very bottom and then lay the sheets of cardboard overlapping that, working upstream, because just like a roof, you want water to flow off of it instead of having little pockets of it where it could back up and be trapped in amongst the cardboard. The other thing is make sure that the seams are well overlapped. You don't want to butt cardboard up against itself. You want to have big overlap. You can see here in some of the places the gaps are quite tight. It's actually overlapped really well. On to the third step, layering the soil and mulch on top of the cardboard that you just put down. In our case, we were lucky to have a source of soil nearby. There was a raised planter that was butting up against the house that we removed, and we were able to use the soil from the raised planter to put it on top of the cardboard. Now, what I've done in the past is omitted the soil and laid the mulch directly on top of the cardboard. The reason that I add the soil now is because soil is so much more biologically active than mulch that it will actually work to decompose the ground a lot quicker. So it gives you a surface that you can plant in much sooner than mulch alone. Now, when I lay soil, it's 1, maybe 2 inches, not a whole lot. In regards to mulch, I use a shredded pine mulch, no dyes, no colors, nothing fancy. And I use 4 to 6 inches, depending on how thick I want it, how much grade change the area can withstand, and how aggressive I think the weeds are going to be. And this is what we finished with. You can see we completely mulched the area and replaced that one planter bed that was butting up against the house with 3 planter beds that are standalone, independent, no connection with the house, and a little herb ladder about midway down. So this was a fairly easy process for 2 guys to complete in about 4 hours. Like I said, luckily we had some soil nearby. And to cover this amount of area, we used 2.5 yards of shredded pine mulch. So that was it. That's my 3-step process to sheet mulching. The one last thing I'll say is it's not 100% effective against all grass and all weeds growing up through the cardboard. Since we did this in June, it's now September, I've seen a few dandelions, a few blades of grass grow through, but because they have to grow through so much material, they're really weak and feeble. So you pick them out and they don't really regrow. Nature's trying its best to not die. Can't really blame it for that. If anybody has any techniques better than this, or if anybody's tried this and it worked and or it didn't work, let me know. I'm always trying to learn so I can share it with you guys. With that being said, thanks for stopping by, and let me know if you want any other rainscaping or ecological landscaping related content. Thanks, guys.